Alright, hi guys, my name is Spilo, and this is episode 6 of the First Fight concept series, where we go over a pro Overwatch match, analyze the first fight, whether it's on a round or whether it's on a map, and discuss a concept that we can pull from it, not only just to understand Overwatch better, but something that we can apply in our own competitive games. Now, because Overwatch League is not on this week, the end of Stage 1, we're going to be talking about a Chinese Contenders game, a game between the winner of last season's Chinese Contenders, and Alter Ego, last place finisher of Season 3 for Chinese Contenders. Now, I'm going to be going over this, even though I've not seen a lot of the Chinese Contenders scenes. So I'm only going to be talking about the things that I know and the things that I see. So we're going to be skipping scenes over to Twitch. The one winner is going to be opening on GOATs, but once they see the Alter Ego or on a Pharah composition or a triple DPS composition, they're going to be swapping to a Sombra Genji dive. Now, a couple things that are worth noting here. Right off the bat, we're going to notice a few unusual swaps. Sombra Genji is not a very standard composition swap into especially a double flanker Pharah. Like, what is Genji gonna do, especially when the enemy team is running a Moira? Well, what we've seen from the one winner, at least in the previous maps that I saw, is that they like to go for the Pharah hack and the dive on the Pharah. Okay, so okay, that works, especially if you manage to get Blade, maybe you manage to get EMP, you've got some answers and things to work with. But that being said, the one winner are still at the disadvantage of this composition, because even though they're running a very cool dive composition that might be able to, like, what are you gonna dive, right? Look at the Alter Ego. They're running a Sombra, can't dive Sombra, can't dive a Tracer. Mercy, unless you hacker, is gonna be very difficult to dive. Same thing with Pharah. We hope they get the hack. Hammond, if he doesn't play very silly, is not gonna get hacked, and he's not diveable. And even Moira. Now, this is something that's very interesting and usually pretty exclusive to the Chinese Contender scene, is the amount of Moira that's used. So Moira is considered a pretty weak pick because she doesn't really contribute very much in this in the fight because of her close range capabilities and her lackluster ult. But if you're really concerned about, you know, being a target, your other support, whether that's a Zen or an Ana, being a target, running a Moira makes sense. And I don't necessarily agree with that pick. But I'm not going to pick on that. I say that there is virtue behind running the Moira, and that I'm going to present it as such. Now, looking at this, even though the one winner are on a, I guess, theoretically better composition playing into triple DPS, they still are at the disadvantage, like I said, because Alter Ego has a lot of more damage, right? They have the Pharah, the damage boosted Pharah. They have the Tracer, right? They have that additional DPS versus a Genji who's just kind of poking, right? And they don't have a hero target that they can really dive outside of maybe a hacked target, right? So Alter Ego's win condition in this situation should be just to poke out the enemy team. Poke, 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 damage, 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 burn down their enemy Moira's resources, you know, force deflect from the Genji, like force the Winston to get half health or make him burn his bubble, and, you know, make the Diva use half of her matrix, and never really get, like, burn down as much resource as you can before the one winner stages a dive, because the one winner has to stage a dive. They can't just take that amount of abuse, even with a Moira. So in this situation, Alter Ego should not be forcing anything. They should be playing it slow, playing it carefully. Use your Hammond for point control to contest point if the one winner tries to turtle up on point or get to point. And, you know, the Moira should trying to play safe. The Pharah should be just putting on as much damage as possible while avoiding getting hacked. So all of these things, just damage, 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 dump damage as much as you can, because even though you're running a Hammond, Sombra, Tracer, you do not want to dive. Right? You have so much damage available to you that you are in no rush to do anything. This team wants to dive because they have the inferior damage. They're a fast-paced team with the Lucio and the Genji, right? But they can't handle a barrage of damage. They don't have a lot of poke damage, right? So the longer the fight goes, the worse it's going to be. But unfortunately, as we're about to see, Alter Ego does not recognize this. They don't recognize the fact that the one winner want to play slow. They try and play fast. They don't adapt their individual and team play style to beat the one winner, and it ends up costing them badly. So rolling out the Sombra Genji, they need to try and stage a dive onto a hacked target if they want to be successful. But they never even have to do that because Alter Ego fails to recognize a very basic win condition. Now, we talked about this not long ago in one of our past poke versus objective things. But in this situation, it's not even objective. It's just playing for poke, right? We have a significantly higher damage team, which should be putting out more damage, versus a significantly lower, damage team who should be playing for a dive, right? So Alter Ego here They're poking. That's great. It's dandy. But then all of a sudden, Hammond dives in. Now that's strange. And it's worse, ladies and gentlemen. We have Hammond, Sombra, and Tracer all in a dive in a situation where that's not what you want to be doing. So what does this do? Well, it does three bad things. First off, Sombra translocates out, almost costing her life, right? Without actually building a ton of ult charge. Tracer has to blink out and has to end up getting pocketed by the Mercy, bottom right of your screen. Okay, I have Epic, but I don't know why I'm not using it. Okay. So Sombra's got to be pocketed, and this means our Pharah's unpocketed, right? So our Pharah's rockets are doing a lot less damage. And then even worse, ladies and gentlemen, is that Hammond, for whatever reason, because he decides to dive, because apparently that's what Hammonds do and they don't do anything else, he dives in, he gets focused down, and he gets killed. Now, even worse than that, the Moira has to try and pocket Hammond. So if Moira's out of position and the Hammond dies anyway. Now after this, because you lose the Hammond, because you were forcing so much pressure so far forward, they don't get any value out of it, out of ults, and they lose the entire map. They lose their damage, and they end up losing the point. Now, I'm not doing this or saying this to rip on Alter Ego, okay? You know, they're a contenders team, which means they're better than a lot of teams out there, and, you know, I'm sure they're decent in their own right. But the simple fact that Alter Ego doesn't recognize that they have a higher damage composition, and the fact that they need to adapt their playstyle and not play dive into this, that's very, very poor. That's very, very poor, and it immediately costs them this point. Like, adapting playstyle is understanding that, okay, there is more than one way to play a hero. There's more than one way to play a composition. And I'm going to give you another example of this. So I've got Stat Banana pulled up really quick here. And on this banana, on the Stat Banana comp thing I have set up, is we have two compositions that are very close to, in some regards. We have Team Blue with a Zen Lucio, Winston Sombra, and Team Red running a Pharmacy Winston Zen. Okay? Now, let's just assume everything else is the same. Which team... how does the composition with the Winston and Sombra play if they're playing into this composition? What happens if the blue team plays slow? What happens if they play, they think, okay, we need to, I read somewhere on this video, somewhere I heard this video, that, you know, you need to be built, when you run a Sombra, you just want to let your Sombra build up EMP and just survive. Not only is it going to take forever for your Sombra to build EMP, right? By the time your Sombra builds up EMP, you'll all have died because you've got a damage boosted Pharah that's smashing the bits out of you, right? That's going to hurt, right? So if you think that there's only one way to play Sombra composition with a Winston, well, you're going to die, right? So just because you're playing Sombra doesn't mean that you're farming EMP. It depends. Now, let's say that the enemy composition is not Sombra. Let's say that they're, I don't know, let's move these guys out of the way. Let's say they're goats. They're Rhine goats. Coach Spilo, he told me that when you're running Sombra, Winston Sombra, you have to dive. You got to dive the Zen. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. Where is she? Where is she? There's everyone's favorite hero. All right, dive! That's the sound of your, nope, that's definitely not, that's the sound of your Sombra and your Winston dying because you dove a goats team, right? Now, you have to be able to recognize things like this because a lot of the times it's not going to be so black and white. You have to be thinking about what are the strengths of the enemy team's compositions and what is the strength of my composition. How can I adjust my playstyle to better match that situation? All right, let's think of another example, something that's even more on the micro level. Let's say that you're trying to play Tracer into Brigitte. Okay? If you're playing Tracer into Goats, should you be hard diving their Zen again and again? Oh, I got a 1v1 their Zen. No, because the Zen's going to get pocketed and you're going to die, right? Okay, so then what can you contribute in that situation? Now, obviously, Tracer isn't great into Goats, but you can still contribute stuff, right? Maybe you're on the ladder and you're playing into, you know, Brig Ana or Brig Zen Lucio, but you're either running a Pharah or something silly like that, right? Okay, how can you adapt your playstyle? Well, what can I contribute? I don't just contribute to dives as Tracer. I can also survive and play in the backline and draw resources and distract. Remember vision manipulation, the first thing we taught, the first video we did, okay? And just live on their backline. Don't card commit on anything unless you see a huge opportunity, but that alone is a way to adapt your playstyle to better match the composition. Let's say you're playing Reinhardt and Goats. What's your job in Reinhardt with Goats? Well, simply put, to take your hammer and swing with bubbles and kill the enemy Rein, right? So that's how you play Rein. You swing your hammer and you clear out space. But all of a sudden, now you're playing a Reinhardt composition. Maybe the enemy team is running a triple or quad DPS. Maybe the enemy team is running a lot of DPS, okay? How do you adjust your playstyle? Do you go and find that main tank, right? Do you go find that Hammond or the Winston, maybe even the Reinhardt with their high DPS composition, swing your hammer on him? Is that what you need to be doing? Is that how your team is going to win that fight? Probably not. You're going to get nuked. You're going to die. Try to think of another example, okay? Oh, here's a good one. Okay, let's say where is he? I'm gonna look for the juicy one. Okay, here, let's play. You're playing Torb. We're gonna go to a different part of the map. I'm awful with Stat Banana. Okay, let's say you're going to a different part of the map, and the enemy team is running. Let's see here, Genji. Oh, that's red. Let's say they're running Genji, and they're running a Tracer, right? And so the Genji Tracer, just like this, and you're Torb, and so you know, and your team is running a Winston. Or maybe a Reinhardt or something like that. So they don't really have a hard shield for your turret. So you just put your turret down here. Doink! Well, the Genji pokes it out. The enemy Zen pokes it out, breaks your turret, then you get dove and you die. Crap, right? Like, Torb is just so bad at the dive. I knew I read that Reddit post somewhere, okay? But, there's more than one way to play Torb. What is the enemy's strength? Well, they take map control, they take a little bit of poke, and they burn down your turret. Well, what happens if you move your Torbjorn turret to the bottom of the stairs, right? Or to just inside, or to inside this little corridor, right? So that they can't poke it down from range before they set up their dive, but the second that they commit to your backline, or the second they commit to you, all of a sudden, so they have to pick and choose, right? And then they're getting shot for, what is it, 50, 60 DPS, right? While you're dealing with them. So you adjust your playstyle to place your turret into situations that controls different parts of the map. You change your playstyle because Torbjorn can't just contribute only in bunker comps. Torbjorn can contribute in a million ways, but it requires you to adapt your playstyle. I'm gonna give you one more example. Let's say you're the Zenyatta, right? And you've been training goats meta, and you've done nothing but sit behind your Reinhardt shield out in the open and just spam the enemy Reinhardt shield, because that's how you're supposed to play. You don't charge up right clicks, you just spam the enemy Rein, and then you hit your shots and you win, right? Pretty easy, right? Well, then all of a sudden the dive meta starts to adapt, and now you're playing it to triple DPS and quad DPS, crossing my fingers, right? If you sit out in the open and you spam the enemy tank again and again, you're going to die. You have to adapt your playstyle. Even though your team is playing the exact same composition, the enemy team changing up what they're playing against you means you have to adapt. You have to adapt. You're no longer playing spam Zenyatta anymore. You got to be charged up those right clicks, looking for the snipe on the enemy Tracer. You got to be playing near, closer to your brig, closer to corner, closer to cover, closer to a health pack like the old way of positioning used to go. But it requires you to adapt your playstyle. And this is incredibly important in competitive mode, because a lot of the times when it comes to making a compositions, and you've all dealt with this, your team is going to play weird stuff. You're going to play double main tank, right? You're going to play triple DPS. You're going to play single DPS. You're going to play quad DPS. You're going to play, you're going to play 2 off tanks, right? And instead of going, well, I'm going to play it the same way, same thing, again and again, and lose, think about, how can I change my playstyle? What do I bring to the table as a diva besides peeling from my backline? How can I adjust my playstyle? Right? Maybe you're playing Diva Hog into a Winston into Goats. If you're playing Diva Hog into Goats and you sit at choke and you're shoot it, then you're not gonna win. You're gonna lose because you're playing like it's Goats and you're not playing Goats. Let's say you're playing Ana, right? And the enemy team is running like a Protect the President composition where they're all stacked with the Bastion and the payload's moving around. If you sit behind a Reinhardt shield and shoot your Reinhardt and heal your Reinhardt, and then he just dies, and okay, that's not how you play Ana into that. You have to adapt your playstyle, okay? What is the enemy team strong at? What am I strong at? What can I contribute to stop the enemy team? Oh, geez, they're not running any sort of flanker, right? They don't have any mobility. What's stopping me from going up on the high, sneaking behind them, or going up on the high ground and nading them from behind the shield, or sleeping the Bastion, right? How can I adapt my play style? Because if you're very concrete and one-dimensional with how you play a hero or a composition, based off of what the enemy team is running, based off of what your team is running, you will fail to improve. There is no one way to play a hero in Overwatch. Recognizing that and forcing yourself to think creatively on how you could beat the enemy team and how you can help your team may be the most crucial thing you learn about improving at Overwatch. Alright guys, that's going to be it for episode 6 of the First Fight Concept series. If you have any questions, feel free to join my Discord, link in the description, and direct message me. Have a wonderful day.